Jaya Sankirtana ki
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Vaishnavrinda ki
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanatinirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadāti Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to our continued study of chapter 10. So we have been discussing the last 3 weeks these 4 very important verses within the Bhagavad Gita. They are called the Chatur Shloki verses. These 4 verses summarize the whole essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And so Krishna is speaking here. So if we remember all the way back from the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, what was the condition of Arjuna as he approached Kṛṣṇa in the beginning of the 2nd chapter? What was his condition? Yes?
He was very distraught and confused about what he needed to do.
So he was confused and distraught about what he was supposed to do. Yeah. What else?
He didn't want to fight against his order.
He didn't want to fight against his family members, against his grandfather. Yes.
He gave many excuses why he should not fight.
How about instead of excuses, we can say he gave very good logical reasons why he should not fight. Right? So he gave some 5 principal reasons why he should not fight. What else was his mindset or his consciousness?
He was willing to just leave everything and go to the forest even.
Yeah, out of almost fear.
Yeah.
Right? He was very fearful. Like sometimes when we're fear, we just want to run away from everything. It becomes so overwhelming, right? So distressful. So Arjuna was in a condition of confusion, distraught, not sure what to do. He wanted to give everything up. He had fear. He had some anxiety. Right? And what was Arjuna's qualification or capability, if we look at it from circumstance, to solve problems, He was fearful, yet he was the most powerful warrior, right? He was a powerful warrior. He was inconquerable, actually. So it's ironic that someone who's so strong, yet has fear. How would we characterize his intelligence or his knowledge? Who was he trained by? Dronacharya, Bhishma Pita, very, illustrious personality. So he, from our childhood, was pedigreed to have great knowledge about right from wrong, about what to do. Yet, he was still in this position, right? So he was very intelligent. He was very young and vibrant. And Krishna chose him to hear this Bhagavad Gita for the purpose of stressing to all of us the importance of how this Bhagavad Gita can be applied to us in our, relatively young and vibrant stage of life, right? Krishna could have spoke to your Bhagavad Gita to, some assembled sages in the forest, on the banks of a river, to very ascetic type or renounced people. But he chose to speak to a family man, a warrior, a soon-to-be king, on the middle of a battlefield. Right? So it's very instructive of why he spoke in this situation to this person in this circumstance. Because it's instructive of how the Bhagavad Gita is practically applicable. So his condition was such, and what was the goal of Arjuna? What did he want? What was the goal of Arjuna? What do we all want? Happiness. Not peace. Right? That's really, when you boil it all down, we simplify it back to, we may want X, Y, or Z, but the why of that, if you keep asking why do you want this? It ultimately goes to, we want peace and happiness. Right? That is the intrinsic quality of all of us. The soul is made up of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Ananda means full of bliss. Right? So this eternal Sat aspect of the soul, it has this eternal enjoying or happiness quotient to it. Right? So Krishna has been speaking to Arjuna. And what is the goal of every single one of Krishna's instructions? What is the only thing that Krishna wants for Arjuna?
Wants for Arjuna?
Yeah, what does he want for Arjuna?
For him to be happy?
Yeah. He wants to give to him what his friend has come to him and asked, right? In the second chapter, 7th and 8th verses, Arjuna has asked Krishna, I can't solve my own problems. I have given with you these 5 reasons why I think I should not fight, yet despite presenting them, my mind is not at ease. So now I am a surrendered soul to you, asking for your counsel. Okay? So since then, Krishna has been speaking in the Bhagavad Gita. And intermittently, what does Arjuna do during the process of Krishna speaking? What is the important thing that Arjuna always does throughout the Bhagavad Gita? He asks questions. He asks questions. Krishna, please stop. I didn't understand this. Please explain this further. Right? This is the process of Vedic knowledge. It is not a one-way dialogue. This whole Bhagavad Gita is a series of questions and answers. Srimad Bhagavatam, questions and answers. And our Shastra is meant to be understood through this process of inquiry. Right? So, we come to this 10th chapter now. What is the title of this 10th chapter? Easiest question of the day. What is the title?
Opulence of the Absolute.
Opulence of the Absolute. So I'm going to ask the same question I've asked the last 3 weeks. Why is Krishna speaking about his opulences? If someone speaks about their great qualities, in society, we think that to be very egotistical, and it's a very unattractive approach, right? We don't go out and tell you, let me tell you about all my opulences. Let me tell you. You have a minute? Right? That's not what we do, right? But Krishna is speaking his opulences. Again, what is his goal in speaking the whole Bhagavad Gita? To give Arjuna peace and happiness, right? So why is Krishna speaking about his opulences? Same question the last 3 weeks. Yes.
Isn't it so that Arjuna will feel attracted enough toward Krishna to serve him as his devotee?
Okay. Yeah. Yep, very close. Yes.
So Krishna has opulences in full, so if we serve him, take shelter of him, then we can see, I think the description you described last time was the power of the source.
So Krishna says again in the 7th verse, I'll read it again. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. Right? So this opulences of Krishna are very attractive. And when we understand that the Supreme Lord, he is the source of all opulences, it inspires us to the process of devotional service. So in this 8th verse, he makes this very important statement. Aham sarvasya prabho mata sarvam pravartate. He says, I am the source of everything. So Krishna being the source of everything, there's a logical conclusion one can draw from that. What is that logical conclusion one should draw from that?
No matter what our desire is, we should go to Krishna to get full satisfaction.
Why?
Because he has everything. The source has the most of everything. Whatever we see is a small portion of what the source has.
So he's going to speak at the end of this chapter. He's going to say that everything, Arjuna, you see around here in this world is just but a spark of my splendor. So whatever splendor we see in the world around us, whatever we get happiness from, it is but just a tiny fraction of what exists with Krishna himself, right? Just like I gave the example last time, this power plug, right? I put a 2-pin plug into there. I draw some power. But how much power in this plug in relation to the whole generation station? It's just a tiny fraction, right? So like that, Krishna is saying this whole universe, whatever you find attractive in this world, whatever you find pleasurable, that exists in its full amount in me, because he says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. I am the source of everything. So he says then, iti vatma bhajante mam. He says that from that, if one who knows this, what do? They engage in a loving relationship with Krishna, being the source of everything. Right? So but he says importantly, in the 8th verse, the 2nd sentence, what kind of people perfectly know this?
You don't know
No? Wise. So we need some wisdom. Right? So then in the 9th verse, Krishna says, well, what is it that pure devotee does? And what is the result? So what is the result that the pure devotee achieves?
Their lives are fully devoted to Krishna service.
Great satisfaction and bliss.
Great satisfaction and bliss. Anybody is looking for great satisfaction and bliss? 1, 2. That's what we're all aspiring for. Right? And Krishna says that the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, meaning they become absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Lord. Right? This machita matkata pranam. And what do? They discuss about Krishna. They hear about him, speak about him constantly. Right? So the result of that is this tushanti and ramanti, this great satisfaction and bliss. So if we think about it, we're all surrendering to something. And last weekend I was in a meeting, a Sunday morning, and we're sitting on the street side, and we were watching these people go by, and everybody is going by with a dog, and it's a great relationship, right, between the owner, but that owner is surrendered to their dog. It's an act of surrender, to the point where they'll pick up stool of the dog with their own hands. That it's an act of surrender. Right? We surrender to our workforce, to our nation, right? To our families, to our loved ones. There's this relationship that exists. It's innate to who we are, right? So this idea of surrendering to the Lord, it is not a question of if we are going to serve, or it's just a question of to whom. Right? It is a universal principle. And what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna is that the wise who understand where this all exists, they understand how to surrender. So now in the 10th verse, we're going to see how Krishna reciprocates with his devotees. So how does he reciprocate, right? So let's read. Someone wants to read the verse in the purport.
To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Purport. In this verse, the word buddhi-yogam is very significant. We may remember that in the 2nd chapter, the Lord, instructing Arjuna, said that he had spoken to him of many things and that he would instruct him in the way of buddhi-yoga. Now, buddhi-yoga is explained. Buddhi-yoga itself is action and Kṛṣṇa consciousness. That is the highest intelligence. Buddhi means intelligence and yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. When one tries to go back home, back to Godhead, and takes fully to Kṛṣṇa consciousness in devotional service, his action is called buddhi-yoga. In other words, buddhi-yoga is the process by which one gets out of the entanglement of this material world. The ultimate goal of progress is Kṛṣṇa. People do not know this. Therefore, the association of devotees and a bona fide spiritual master are important. One should know that the goal is Kṛṣṇa, and when the goal is assigned, then the path is slowly but progressively traversed, and the ultimate goal is achieved.
When a person knows the goal of life but is addicted to the fruits of activities, he is acting in karma yoga. When he knows that the goal is Kṛṣṇa but he takes pleasure in mental speculations to understand Kṛṣṇa, he is acting in jnana yoga. And when he knows the goal and seeks Kṛṣṇa completely in Kṛṣṇa consciousness and devotional service, he is acting in bhakti-yoga or buddhi-yoga, which is the complete yoga. This complete yoga is the highest perfectional stage of life. A person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization. But if he is still not intelligent enough to make progress, then Kṛṣṇa from within gives him instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. The qualification is that a person always engages himself in Kṛṣṇa consciousness and with love and devotion render all kinds of services. He should perform some sort of work for Kṛṣṇa, and that work should be with love. If a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to him.
So Krishna again says, to those who are constantly devoted to me, serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. So Anybody find any concept in this purport a little unique or different? Yeah, which one?
To understand the intelligence.
Which piece? Yeah?
Constantly devoted. Those are constantly devoted to.
Okay, so those are constantly devoted.
Exclusive.
That's the exclusive devotion we're speaking of. Yeah. Any other aspects of the purport that caught your eye?
It's interesting that he says a person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization.
And then what does he say?
He says, but if he's still not intelligent enough to make progress, then Kṛṣṇa from within gives him instruction so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty.
I found that sentence and the last sentence to be very, very intriguing. Yeah.
So those who are constantly devoted to him, even after that, Krishna is saying that even still, I give them the understanding. So it's like even the pure devotees, they're not there yet until Krishna gives them the understanding.
So, intelligence, right? So Prabhupada defines earlier in the purport, what is the highest intelligence?
Buddhi-yoga.
Action and Kṛṣṇa consciousness.
And Prabhupada goes on to make some pretty, exclusive statements, right? The ultimate goal of progress is Kṛṣṇa. Why is that a factual conclusion?
Because we are the goal is to go back to Godhead.
Why should that be the goal?
To escape from being born again and again.
Okay, but why escape from being born again and again?
That's the ultimate happiness.
Okay, so why is that the ultimate happiness?
Because we were part of Kṛṣṇa before coming where we are.
Because we are part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa. Krishna says, Aham bija pradaha pita. Right? He says, Mama ivamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. That the jiva is eternally a part and parcel of Krishna. So, like any child, when they are connected to their father and their mother, at least when we speak young child, at least, as we develop our sense of independence. But at least as a young child, that connection is what brings about its, in the relative speaking, perfection of relationship. Right? So, we are part and parcel of Krishna. And so, our path to happiness and peace exists only in relationship with the Supreme Lord. That's the reality. We can find glimmers of enjoyment and peace throughout the world in different ways. But it's a glimmer. It's a short-lived. Because we are like that fish out of water. When a fish is disconnected from water, it's unhappy. No matter what else it has. When it's disconnected from water, it's unhappy. Similarly, the spirit soul, when it's disconnected from its eternal Father, there is strife. Right? So that is why Prabhupada is saying here that the ultimate goal of progress is Krishna. And he says the highest intelligence is understanding that. Right? What is the purpose of intelligence? If our children have intelligence, we say use it. We try to cultivate it, right? What is the purpose of intelligence? We don't think about it much. Huh?
To use it constructively.
To use it constructively. Okay? That's a good start. So we want to use our intelligence constructively, right? Can intelligence be used destructively?
Yes.
Very much so. Right? We've seen, right? Very intelligent people do very devious things. Right? There are crooks and criminals who are very intelligent, but used. Right? So we want intelligence used constructively. Right? And what is ultimate constructive purpose or use of our intelligence? What is the goal of our life?
Getting Krishna.
Peace and happiness. Right? So we try to cultivate our intelligence so that we can acquire this peace and happiness. That is the goal of life. That is the goal of our intelligence. If we step back, right, what is the goal of accumulating wealth?
Happiness.
What's the goal of acquiring fame? Goal of acquiring strength, beauty, right? Whatever these 6 ashrayas, these 6 opulences, right? What is the goal of them all? So one of those is intelligence, right? And who has these 6 in full, unlimited? Right? Parashara Muni, the father of Srila Vyasadeva, says Bhagavan. Bhagavan means one who possesses these 6 opulences in full. Right? So then intelligence is to do something for a constructive purpose, ultimately to yield, to bring about this peace and happiness. So that is why Srila Prabhupada is saying that this intelligence is highest when we have understood our eternal relationship. That relationship with the Lord, it is not temporary. It is not a matter of custom or social situation or time or place. It is sanatana, which means it's eternal. That's an eternal truth. Yeah, 100 years from now, I may be in a completely different body, completely different form. And 100 years ago, I was also in a completely different setup. I know that for sure, right? You all know that for sure. But the one constant, the one sanatana dharma, was your relationship, my relationship, our relationship with our Supreme Father. So that is the ultimate best use of our intelligence, is to understand that and to inquire and to find out about this relationship. So what is Kṛṣṇa promising to do here?
Give the understanding, to provide intelligence.
To give the understanding. He says, dadāmi buddhi-yogaṁ. He says, I give. And Srila Vishnu Chakrabarti Thakur comments on this verse. He says this dadāmi buddhi. I give buddhi. He says, it is not that, okay, we have Paramatma in our heart, right? So Kṛṣṇa is present in our heart as Paramatma. That's one of his features. But he says, this is not the Paramatma inspiration. This is Kṛṣṇa personally coming to give this knowledge, this intelligence. And that is the ultimate love that the Supreme Lord has for us. That when he sees that, oh, my dear child is sincere in his effort. How? By constantly being devoted. Then the Lord reciprocates. Remember, our relationship with Kṛṣṇa is not a one-way street. It is a two-way relationship. Right? When Kṛṣṇa says, Aham sarvasya prabhu mata sarvam pavartate, sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam bhajatām. When he says, you surrender unto me, who is surrendered to Arjuna on the cover of this book?
Kṛṣṇa.
Kṛṣṇa is driving Arjuna. This is this two-way relationship that exists between the Lord and his devotee. Just like a father and son, right? Son serves father with love, right? With whatever capacity the son has, he serves father. And how does the father reciprocate?
100-fold, if not more.
Many, many times more in return, right? Whatever the child's ability is to serve, what is the father's ability, relatively speaking, to reciprocate? Who wins in that formula? The child, always. Right? So who wins in our relationship with Kṛṣṇa? When Kṛṣṇa says, you surrender everything to me, it sounds like, well, that's really nice of Kṛṣṇa to say. We will do all the work, we do all this, and then we give everything to him. Wow, that's a good formula, Kṛṣṇa. actually Krishna says, I give everything and more back. Right? That is the two-way relationship. So, but this takes some knowledge, some intelligence. And this intelligence comes from, actually everything comes from Krishna. Right? He says, Aham sarvasya prabhu. He says, everything, I'm the source of it all. So even our intelligence, it comes from the Supreme Lord. Just like a child's whole existence, it comes from mother and father. Though the child thinks there's some independent existence, right? But in reality, every grain of rice that comes on the dinner table, where it comes from? Mother and father. They may not acknowledge or appreciate it. So like that, everything we have, our whole existence, is coming from the blessings of the Lord. And here Krishna is saying, but to his devotee, he gives special dispensation. And very importantly, he says he personally comes. So now on this intelligence, our Shastras explain that there are 4 levels of intelligence. 4 markers of intelligence. And Prabhupada would use the example of a criminal to kind of explain the 4 levels. For the first level of intelligence is that when one hears something from a bona fide source, they have full understanding. Like if somebody hears that you should not do a crime, you'll be put in jail, and these consequences will have. Just by hearing it is sufficient for them not to commit a crime. So that is the highest level of intelligence. One who hears something obtains conclusive understanding. The next level is one hears about it, but they're still not convinced. They have to see it. Show, carrying this example forward of the criminal. Well, in order to induce me not to perform a crime, I must see what the prison life is like. Maybe I'll like it. I heard about it. Let me see what is inside. So by hearing about it and seeing it, okay, that's sufficient for them not to perform that activity. That is the second level. The first level again, hearing and conclusive proof. Second, hearing and seeing. The third level is, I see it, but I have to try it at least. So, perform some crime. They see where they're going, spend one day, realize, oh, this is not a place. And then they have conclusive evidence that they should not do. So they have heard it, seen it, and now experienced it. It took 3 levels to experience. Finally, they have some intelligence, saying, I shouldn't do this again. And what is the 4th level, the least intelligent? You can guess. They hear it, they see it, they experience it, and they still do it. That is the least intelligent. So Prabhupada is making an interesting point here in this purport. A person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization. But if he still is not intelligent enough to make progress, then Kṛṣṇa from within gives him instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. If a devotee, at this last sentence, is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to him. Right? So, we may not be so convinced at the first instruction. We may not be so convinced. And so we go off and do our own exploration, our own experiential, experimental design. Right? And then, ultimately, Kṛṣṇa will come and inspire us. Right? And we should understand these 4 gradations of intelligence. Just by hearing alone, it's so much more efficient, is it not? It saves time. Now, we should not hear blindly. We should not hear from anybody. Oh, walking down the street, my dear sir, who is God, or how do I get there, or what, you can't hear blindly. You have to hear with intelligence, right? We have to hear from a bona fide source. So that's why Prabhupada says, from a bona fide source, not just any source. But once we do, and Srila Prabhupada experienced this often. If you read Lilamrita, you'll see, he would give instructions, particularly in the, in the whole battle of the, getting the Juhu temple land. He would give instructions, don't do this. They would ask the question. Some disciples would ask the question, should we sign these papers? Prabhupada would say, don't sign those papers. And what would happen? Sign the papers. And then Prabhupada would have to come, and after great effort, he would have to undo all of that. Right? Have to undo everything. Whereas if they had intelligence, but we see that one's own mind becomes very challenging to subdue those ideas. And it happens since time immemorial, right? During Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, we see so many examples. So, I found it interesting that Prabhupada ended his purport with that paragraph, speaking subtly, but quite clearly to this point. Any other comments or observations from this purport? Yes.
What's the difference between intelligence and understanding?
What's the difference between intelligence and understanding? Well, you can say intelligence is the means to understand. What is the meaning of understanding? It means when actions follow their intelligence. I may know smoking a cigarette is bad for me. I may know that, but do I have the understanding such that it shapes my activities? Just using I may know that my Supreme Father is the Supreme Lord, but have my activities then went in line with that?
Yeah, I was trying to understand this line. Why does he use the word progress? The ultimate goal of progress is Krishna. Because in part of Purport, earlier he's talking about the process and what it is, and then suddenly he's talking about progress. He's just trying to link the two.
So, we speak about progress in society all the time, right? How do we measure progress?
In Krishna consciousness, or
How do in general, how do politicians measure progress?
Prosperity.
by their
Prosperity.
personal gain?
By their personal gain, yes.
By
At least in a holistic state, let's say.
More votes.
Votes, outcomes,
No, I mean, like
satisfaction,
their rating in
ratings,
their
approval ratings.
approval rating, right?
Completion of the project.
Happens.
Society measures progress often by wealth, right? But is wealth a measure of progress? Ultimately, we would say peace and happiness is a measure of progress. Right? If you have all the money in the world but you're miserable, would you want it?
No.
You'd rather have all the money in the world and be happy. That would be seemingly. So what Prabhupada is saying here is that the ultimate goal of what we say progress is Krishna. That is the ultimate destination, the ultimate metric, criteria of progress. Is how close I am coming to Krishna.
Basically, the goal of Bhakti-yoga is attaining Krishna.
What's that?
Can I read this sentence as the ultimate goal of Bhakti-yoga is to attain Krishna? Would that be a fair...
Yeah, he says pretty much that in the earlier, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So he's establishing the goal, but here he's saying that the goal of progress, because he speaks about progressive advancement towards spiritual life. Right? It's not a flip the switch. You're not going to just flip the switch and all of a sudden you're a surrendered soul to Krishna. It's a stage of progression that's fueled by your faith, your intelligence, and your experience. If you start in the path of spiritual life and you're not experiencing the desired result, you're not going to continue. Just like if you experience the path of going to the gym and you're not experiencing some transformation of the body or some health experience, you're not going to continue. You need that reciprocation back. Right? So like that in spiritual life, there's also a tangible experience as you move through, but it is a progressive stage of life.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that. In my how I see that sentence, every morning we wake up, my goal is to make some progress, right? Today I want to do something more, whether it is at work, whether it is family, whatever it is, right? So every day my goal is to make some progress. So how I read, how that sentence, I read that is, since my goal every day is progress, the progress means acting in Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
I really love the very last sentence because Krishna basically says, so those who aren't so intelligent, there's still hope for you. I really love that.
Yes. Yes.
That is little contradictory to me. Could you explain that last sentence? Because you think not intelligent to make progress, but still sincere and devoted to the activity of devotional service. So how can one be sincere at the same time not intelligent?
Look at me, Mataji. I'm example, the example is sitting right here. Right here. Best example.
Sincerity means you are actually acting towards it. No? If you're acting towards it, then you will be still intelligent.
The intelligence.
So, ultimately, to understand Krishna in his full, and not even in his full, you can never understand Krishna in his full, but to understand Krishna, it requires the mercy of Krishna to be bestowed upon us. Okay? So to reach this bhava bhakti stage, this very advanced, elevated stage of bhakti, it requires two shaktis. Krishna has many energies, but he has this Shambhit Shakti and this Haladini Shakti. These are two energies of Krishna. Shambhit Shakti is this intelligence, to know. That has to descend into the heart. You cannot, through our rote scholarship, try to figure this out. It comes from the Shambhit Shakti of Krishna being entered into the heart. And second, this Haladini Shakti, but specific about this intelligence, right? So when Krishna will give that, when he sees sincerity. So just like us as parents, you can always bring this back to parenting, right? When you see your child is sincere in trying something, that is what you want. You want effort. You're not looking for perfection, right? Sometimes we become over maniacal with our children, wanting perfection. But if we step back, we want effort. Well, Krishna's the same way. He's not expecting us to be, a scholar per se. If we're not, if we are, we should use it in Krishna's service. Or let's say we're not the most artistic. Doesn't mean we can't try to make something for him. Maybe we can't sing. He can still sing for the Lord. He's not looking for the external features. He's looking for what's in the heart. How much effort is there? Because he's our loving Father. So we may not have the intelligence to make full progress, but sincerely trying is what will attract the attention of the Lord. And it's a very sweet promise from him. Right? He's saying, And that's why he said at the end of the day, patram pushpam phalam toyam. Just give me a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or water. I'm not asking for more. But yome bhaktiya parayachati. Offer to me with love. That is ultimately what the Lord wants. He doesn't want our fear of Him. He doesn't even necessarily want our awe and reverence of Him. Really what He wants from us is our love. Okay? But to understand it, it takes some intelligence. And so that is why this comes into play, that if a devotee is not intelligent enough. And Prabhupada's comment at the beginning of this purport is, the bona fide spiritual master is sufficient to bring about this knowledge, this intelligence, right? It's kind of an interesting statement. But if he's still not intelligent enough, then Kṛṣṇa comes. It suggests, right? And that's that whole, levels of hearing, right? We hear, but do we understand? And the mind and the ego take us to, try to sometimes draw our own conclusions. And so Kṛṣṇa says, then Prabhupada is guiding us here that, okay, if that happens, don't worry, Kṛṣṇa will clean it up. he'll clean it up. You know what I mean?
I'm just thinking, the mind tells us to do things or makes us do things, and intelligently we know kind of right from wrong, but sometimes the mind is so powerful, it overcomes the intelligence.
Yeah.
So how to make intelligence stronger than the mind.
Kṛṣṇa says this right in the beginning of the 6th chapter. He gives 3 very powerful verses. He says that the mind is very powerful. If it's uncontrolled, it's your biggest enemy. And if it's controlled, it's your greatest friend. Anybody agree or disagree with that?
Totally agree.
Right? We've seen it. We've seen an unruly mind lead to havoc, and we've seen a very controlled mind lead to amazing things. Right? We have very practical experience of that. So the Lord Kṛṣṇa is saying in the beginning of the 6th chapter that it is up to us to determine how to use the mind. And what is his definition of control? If you let the mind wander to all of its hankerings, forget about it.
Out of control.
Just carrying this example forward, since we've been using it, crime. Why is crime actually committed?
Because of actions of uncontrolled mind.
It's an uncontrolled mind. I want something that's not mine. If you boil it down, I want something that's not mine. Think about it. If everybody had a controlled mind, I would not have a lock on my door. You wouldn't need a lock on your door. Because nobody's mind would get in the way of their intelligence. Virtually every criminal knows what they're doing is wrong. Right? They know it's wrong. But it cannot be stopped. So how to control it? How to control the mind? Well, like a young boy, a 2-year-old boy. If you tell a young 2-year-old boy, sit and don't do anything, good luck. It doesn't work. Right? But a 2-year-old boy is walking around with a hammer and banging on the glass. We don't want that either. That's destructive. So what do? We engage the boy. We engage the young boy in something productive. So the mind is all over the place. So what to do? Trying to artificially stop the mind, suppress the activities of the mind, it's not really a long-term solution. You can try some different meditation practices, and it can subdue the mind just like you can subdue the child for a short amount of time. But ultimately, its nature comes out. So instead, Kṛṣṇa recommends in the 6th chapter that you engage the mind. You use it, but use it productively. You use it in the relationship with the Lord. And when you do, then it becomes control. And it becomes then your friend and not your enemy. So, there's a whole seminar we can give on the art of mind control. But it centers around knowing how to use the mind, not trying to stop it. It's not going to work. Okay? Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
So when Krishna gives intelligence, especially to his spiritual master, how is that realized in terms of, I know Krishna says buddhi-yoga, buddhi means entanglement, yoga means mystic activity, installation. So my question is this something that is realized, or is this something that is like, wow, now I have intelligence? Is it, and how does it happen?
Remember, so we spoke about the three characteristics of soul: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. What does Chit mean?
Forever knowledge.
Knowledge, full of knowledge. Actually, the jiva, the spirit soul, all this knowledge is inherent to the soul. If you go to you take the word education, and you go to its Latin root, the Latin word is educare. And educare means to bring out from within. So actually all this knowledge is inherent to the soul, because it is chit. That's one of its qualities. So this knowledge becomes revealed to us by our practice of spiritual life. It's just like if you have glasses and they're very, very dirty, and you are trying to see the world around you, you don't see anything. But as you start to clean those lenses, you slowly start to see and perceive things that are there. Right? Or if I turn off the lights of all this room, you can't see what's in this room. Right? You don't know what's there. But if I flip on the lights, it's all there. The lights didn't create everything that's here. It simply illuminated what is there. So we chanted this verse, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It says that the spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. The torch of knowledge. Meaning knowledge is what illuminates everything. And in this very next verse, Krishna is going to speak. So he not only gives intelligence, but he also eradicates ignorance. And what symbolism he uses? With the shining lamp of knowledge. With the lamp of knowledge. Light is illuminating. So, by accepting a bona fide spiritual master, one acquires the mercy of the Lord to be able to practice spiritual life. And this practice of spiritual life is what will bring about this knowledge. Again, if you try to, through rote scholarship, understand the Bhagavad Gita, you will miss it completely.
Yeah.
Prabhupada says, it's like licking the outside of a bottle of honey. You can lick and lick and lick to your heart's delight. You're so close to it. You're a millimeter away from it, but you won't taste any of the honey. He says, if you try to study the Bhagavad Gita without the spirit of devotion, you'll read it. You'll be here, but you won't understand anything. And so in the very introduction, he warns that approach this in the mood of devotion, and then this knowledge will be revealed. So you'll know it when you have it. And this is Krishna's promise. He says, I give, dadāmi. He doesn't say it comes. He doesn't say one is enlightened. He says, I give. Not through Paramatma. I give. That is the ultimate verse. Anything else? That's it?
Oh, so
Yes.
So the question, sometimes I say this.
Yeah.
And this is a misnomer that I use. I would say full-time devotee, someone who's living at the temple, fully dedicated, while non-full-time devotees, or someone who's working or has a job and comes to the temple on Sundays. So like my question is I forgot my train of thought, but what I was trying to say is the last sentence of the Purport, Srila Prabhupada tells us that, even by sincerely devoted to the activities of devotional service. So does that mean our mind is not completely absorbed in what we're doing, but we're trying to get to that point?
It's again, it's all about effort. Reciting verses is not about perfect pronunciation. Singing bhajans is not about the perfect melody. It's about the perfect consciousness of the heart. What is my effort? What is my goal? And that is why, we should not even attempt to judge who is a devotee and who is not a devotee.
For like ourselves.
Rupa Goswami gives very clear instructions here. Don't judge. You don't know.
Okay.
You don't know what's in the heart of that person.
Right?
I think I'm speaking in general, right? We don't know. If you try to judge by external circumstances, how wonderfully they cook, or how beautifully they sing, or how they've memorized all 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, they must be a powerful devotee. That is no measure of one's devotion. What is a measure of one's devotion is what is in their heart. What is your consciousness by which they are performing their devotional service, right? So, good news is, Kṛṣṇa hasn't outsourced his measurement job to us. He can do it himself. We're not here to give him a report on who's doing well and who's not. Just focus on ourselves, right? That he's taken care of. He's sitting in everyone's heart, right? So we should be loving and respectful to all. Someone who is a non-devotee, we should be very respectful to, right? It's not like we should not become judgmental. Start to create hierarchies.
Because we don't know what their karmic karma is like. We don't know how much bhakti they did in their former lives.
We have no idea. We shouldn't judge. And that's why, again, Prabhupada makes a statement, about the intelligence. If it's not sufficient, then Kṛṣṇa has to come. Because sometimes, we don't take to that instruction. Because of our own process of analysis. And it's very prevalent. It's very difficult to overcome that. But we try.
And like, for example, when we're working, can we think of, okay, this work I'm doing for Kṛṣṇa,
Remember, Prabhupada says, the real sannyasi, he also goes to the office.
Yeah.
Right? That renunciation is not about the color of your dress. That's not renunciation. Right? We see in Bhaktivedanta Synonyms, na shaktasya vishayam yatādāṁ upayānti nirbandha Kṛṣṇa sambandhe yuktam vairagya uchyate. Yukta vairagya. What is real renunciation? One who is using everything within the world in the service of the Lord. That is real renunciation. Yeah, accumulate wealth, accumulate fame, accumulate all these things. But he's saying use them with your Supreme Father, not in separation. That is the real renunciant. Right? So you can be in the office, you can be in the temple, you can be anywhere. Remember, Arjuna wanted to run to the forest. And Krishna said, shh, come back. You have a job to do. You have a duty. Right? In our Guru Parampara, we see so many householders. So, don't think someone living in the temple is necessarily more or less advanced than someone else. Just like someone living in the Dham may or may not be. Don't know. Don't judge. Okay? Shall we chant?
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Adanta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda.
Nitya Krishna.
Jai.